Hey guys, it's Dr. A, and today I felt the need to hop on because I wanted to serve up, first of all, something super nerdy, but also something that I think will help you, hopefully the way that it helps me, conceptualize of moments where it's really hard to channel gratitude or to find positivity, right? And the reason for that is so many of us now are going through something, going through some sort of struggle as a result of the craziness that is 2020. And so I'm hearing these questions a lot. How do I channel gratitude right now? How do I channel positive thoughts when I feel like everything around me is so dark? So I offer this up, not as a minimization of any of the struggles, but actually just as like a way to think through them and feel through them. I'm doing this also because, a lot of the time, really all that we're told is to journal about gratitude or, to, something along those lines, which is super, super helpful. But this is something that, definitely helps me. So I hope it'll help you, right? So we're going to dive into some science just for a few minutes, and then I'm going to bring it back to a very practical thing you can do right now. And in the future, when you're feeling like you want to channel something that you're just not feeling right now, okay? So, okay. So I want to start with Einstein, right? So Einstein's construct of the universe is called the block universe. And this universe is four-dimensional with the three dimensions of space and then the added fourth dimension of time. And if you have any questions about why that is, we can always, just let me know. We can also make a video about why time is important and add it into this construct. But essentially, according to this, theory, you can conceptualize of our universe, that 4D universe, as more or less a cubic structure in which every single point is a different point in what they call space-time, right? And so it's not just a location in time, but a location in space. And according to this theory, then, that would mean that just the way that the space you're taking up right now is real, and the space 2 feet in front of you is real, and the space 2 feet behind you is real, the same thing is true for time. So time exists all at once the way space does, right? So 2 minutes forward in time versus 2 minutes backwards in time versus the now all exists at once, right? So the now is really, a construct that we have because of where we are relative to space-time, right? And so a lot of Einstein's work is about, like theory of relativity, about relativity of different experiences as we experience them versus what is true of our universe. So as humans, we tend to think of time as not just being, not just existing as points, but we think of it as linear, right? And we also think of it as moving forward, when really physics tells us that it works just as well to include in an equation time moving forwards or time moving backwards, right? So time, it can't exist as zero, but it can exist in either direction. But as humans, we only experience it moving forward. And there are really brilliant physicists like Max Tegmark at MIT who theorize, why this might be the case. Why do humans experience time only moving in one direction when the math tells us in theory it can move in both directions? And the answer is actually entropy. So I don't know if you remember from back in school, the concept of entropy, but it's a measurement of the disorderliness, the chaos of the universe, right? And the law of entropy says that everything in the universe is constantly expanding and becoming more complex. And because it's one of the laws of our universe, you can find it everywhere. So physical manifestations of entropy exist, right now. You can look outside the window and see, for example, spirals. That's a visualization of the math of entropy, right? So something that moves from a very small orderly point out into a more complex disorderly point. And you see that pattern in fractals throughout nature. You see it, for example, like in a sunflower. The center of a sunflower contains that pattern, but so do like spiraling galaxies. They contain that pattern as well. And what a lot of physicists and others arrive at is that our concept of time is truly just our perception of entropy. So, for example, we store memories as something, that's like in a data bank in our minds. It's something that happened in the past, and we assume that it's already happened. We can't go back to it, and we assume that's because of time, when really it's because of the way that law works in the universe, where things go from a simpler state to a more complex, disorderly state. So, for example, scrambling an egg, we know that you can crack an egg open and scramble it in a bowl. That makes sense to us, moving in that forward direction, but you can't unscramble an egg. You can't put it back into the shell, and that's not because of time. That's because of entropy. And so our perception of what entropy is forces us to conceptualize time as moving in one direction, and that's exactly what you would expect, actually, in a universe where entropy is just one of the laws. So the way we even develop as organisms, the way our minds work, everything, it's all a physical representation of something moving from a simpler state to a more complex, disorderly state. So in theory, the same physicists would say, if we lived in a universe devoid of entropy, in which that wasn't one of the laws, we wouldn't have consciousness. Consciousness exists because of entropy. So this all sounds like, maybe a little bit like jargony, but really all that goes to say that our perception of time is really an artifact of something else that is going on, and we perceive it as moving forward, when really what the physics says is that it all exists at once. So that's interesting in and of itself. But what I want you to take from that, and what I do with that information, when it comes to things like channeling gratitude, channeling, some sort of positivity, some sort of state, is to picture what Max Tegmark describes as like a DVD, right? So this is, I think, such an amazing metaphor. So if the universe were a DVD, we would be able to then sort of think of and conceptualize what it would feel like to look at that DVD of something that, say, a movie you've seen a million times, like let's say Lilo and Stitch. Let's say you've seen it 100 times, because I probably have. You can look at a DVD of Lilo and Stitch, and you can already sort of conceptualize the beginning, the middle, the end, everything that happens within it. It exists within that structure, and it exists all at once. So you can experience it linearly when you watch it, but you can also experience it because you know it so well and you've got that perspective. You can experience it all at once. And it's that feeling, that experiencing it all at once feeling, that I tap into when I do feel stuck. And that's what I want to share with you today, is that knowing, hopefully I described it well, but you can dive into it so deeply, into the math, into the science, into the physics, into the philosophy of it. Everything does tell us that time is more or less our perception. And so because we're holding on to it as such an important part of our existence, it keeps us from experiencing the world in a different way. And so I encourage you, when you're feeling stuck, to think of that DVD, think of your life, of everything, of the universe as that DVD, and look at it feeling that sense of everything happening all at once, right? And anchoring onto, and that's a technical term that we use in NLP, you can look that up as well, anchoring onto a feeling within that space. So you can be grateful for something that lives within that DVD. It may not be where you feel like you are right now, but that is your perception at the moment. And so again, this is all sort of it's super important, and it explains to some extent our human experience, but at the same time, it's not to minimize, of course, what's going on right now, because people are struggling to pay their bills and all those other things that I'm hearing, and all of that. That's one way that you can feel your way through it, feel your way onto the other side of those kinds of tough moments. So I hope that really helps you. If it does, feel free to reach out to me, and I can share with you other techniques that are similar. There are techniques that have to do with traveling mentally along a timeline. Like I said, with anchoring into specific feelings and emotions and emulating and embodying those emotions any given time. There are ways to do that. So if that helps you, please leave a comment so I know, send me a private message, and I'm super happy to give more information about all that stuff. And yeah, feel free all the time to reach out, and yeah, let me know what it is that you're going through right now and a way that we can support you at Movement. So yeah, have a wonderful day, and definitely think of the DVD if you're having a tough day. Think of that DVD.